February 22nd, 2026. 6 in the morning. 6 military helicopters appear in the sky over a wooden cabin hidden in the trees above town. The cabin has no name on any map. The road that leads to it was built without permits, by men who do not exist in any government registry. Inside the cabin sleeps a 59-year-old man with a $15 million bounty on his head. He has been hunted for 30 years, by 4 U.S. presidents, by 3 Mexican administrations, by the DEA, the FBI, the Mexican Marines, and an elite American interagency task force created for the sole purpose of finding him. None of them have ever come this close. The intelligence breakthrough did not come from a corrupt official. It did not come from a betrayed lieutenant. It did not come from a wiretap or a satellite intercept or a defector turning state's evidence. It came from a woman, a romantic partner the cartel had failed to account for in its security protocols. She had been under surveillance for months. The night before, she arrived at the cabin. By dawn, she had left. The man she came to see remained inside. When the first burst of gunfire breaks the silence, his bodyguards open up with assault rifles. They will fight for 20 minutes. 8 of them will die in the trees. A Mexican military helicopter will be hit and forced to make an emergency landing. But by the time the soldiers reach the cabin, the man they have come for is already running wounded, bleeding, fleeing into the dense forest with 2 of his closest men. The special forces track him for hours. When they finally catch him, 2 bullets have found their target. He is loaded onto a helicopter for medical evacuation to Mexico City. He never makes it. His name is Nemesio Rubén Oseguera Cervantes. The world knows him as El Mencho. He is the founder of the Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, the most violent criminal organization in the Western Hemisphere. He has supplied the fentanyl that killed more Americans in the past decade than the Vietnam War. He has ordered the shooting down of military aircraft. He has built a global trafficking empire that operates in all 50 U.S. states and on 5 continents. And 40 years ago, he was a 5th-grade dropout guarding marijuana plants in an avocado field. This is the story of how that boy built an empire, and how, in a wooden cabin in the mountains of Tapalpa, that empire finally killed him. Aguililla, Michoacán, 1966. A region of green valleys, dirt roads, and small farms growing lime and avocado. Most families live without electricity. Children walk barefoot to school, if they go at all. The Mexican government has largely forgotten this place exists. On July 17th of that year, in a tiny community called Culotitlan, Rubén Oseguera Cervantes is born. He is one of 6 brothers. His parents are avocado farmers, devout Catholics, hard-working, dirt poor. He will later change his name to Nemesio, in honor of his godfather. The diminutive in the local dialect is Mencho. The nickname will follow him for the rest of his life. His childhood is one of relentless labor. He drops out of school in the 5th grade, a fact confirmed years later in U.S. court records. By 12, he is harvesting avocados from sunrise to sunset. By 14, he is earning extra money guarding marijuana plantations hidden in the hills above his village. In Aguililla in the 1970s, this is not unusual. The mountains around the town have become an unofficial production zone for cannabis bound for the United States. Local farmers tend the plots. Local boys, paid in pesos, watch them at night. Everyone in the region knows what is happening. No one talks about it. What sets young Mencho apart is not his background. It is his ambition. By his late teens, he has decided that the fields of Aguililla are not enough. The same trucks that carry marijuana north are carrying men undocumented workers seeking the higher wages of California's agricultural industry. According to U.S. immigration records later compiled during his criminal cases, Mencho crosses illegally into the United States at least 3 times before his 20th birthday. He picks strawberries, tomatoes, lettuce. He shares cramped apartments with other undocumented workers in Stockton, Modesto, eventually San Francisco. He is one of millions of anonymous Mexican laborers feeding the American economy from the bottom up. He is not content to remain a field worker. The boy who once guarded marijuana in the hills of Michoacán understands that the real money is not in growing the product. It is in selling it. By 1986, he is 19 years old, living near San Francisco, and selling Mexican brown heroin on the corners of the Mission District. That summer, the San Francisco Police Department makes the first official entry in the long criminal file of Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. He is arrested on drug-related charges. He is processed. He is released. He does not stop. For the next 6 years, he operates as a low-level distributor in the Bay Area. He is invisible. The DEA is not watching him. The FBI is not watching him. He is one of hundreds of young Mexican immigrants moving small quantities of heroin through California, while American attention is fixed on the cocaine wars of Miami and the crack epidemic of the inner cities. In 1992, his luck runs out. San Francisco police conduct an undercover operation in the Mission District. The target is a network distributing Mexican brown heroin. Among those who sell directly to undercover officers, 3 separate transactions. All recorded is a slim, quiet 26-year-old with dark hair. In 1994, in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes is convicted of conspiracy to distribute heroin. He serves nearly 3 years in federal prison. For a young Mexican trafficker, federal prison in the early 90s is a graduate school. Inside those walls, Mencho meets experienced traffickers, money launderers, enforcers, cartel members serving short sentences before returning to senior positions. He learns the names that matter in the new geography of the Mexican drug trade. He learns how the DEA builds cases, how prosecutors negotiate, how informants are tested and discarded. He keeps to himself. He listens. He absorbs. When he is released in 1997, U.S. immigration deports him to Mexico. He returns to a country that has been transformed. The old structures of the Mexican drug trade have collapsed in the years since the murder of DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena. New cartels are rising in the vacuum: the Gulf Cartel, the Arellano Felix organization in Tijuana, the Juarez Cartel under Amado Carrillo Fuentes, and a young Sinaloa-based operation led by a man named Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. In Michoacán, where Mencho returns, a smaller group called the Milenio Cartel is consolidating control of the Western Corridor. For most deportees, the path forward is menial labor or another illegal crossing. Mencho takes neither route. He does something almost no one else in his position can do. He becomes a police officer. According to reporting by the Mexican magazine Proceso and confirmed by U.S. federal investigators, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, convicted American drug trafficker, recently deported from federal prison, obtains a position as a local police officer in Mexico. The exact municipality, the exact dates, the exact mechanics have never been fully documented. What is clear is that for some period in the late 1990s, the man who will one day lead the most violent cartel in the Western Hemisphere wears a badge. It is, in retrospect, the perfect cover. a police officer has access to weapons, to information, to corrupt officials. He has immunity from the casual harassment any other deportee would face. He can move through the country quietly, build networks, observe. By the time the new century arrives, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes has quietly stepped through a door that will change his life. He is no longer a small-time dealer working the streets of San Francisco. He is something else entirely. The story of how a deported heroin dealer becomes the founder of the most violent cartel in the world is, at its core, a story of marriage. Sometime in the late 1990s, in the western state of Jalisco, Mencho meets a woman named Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia. She does not come from the poverty of Aguililla. She comes from a family of avocado and lime exporters. She is educated. She is articulate. And her last name, Valencia, carries weight in the underground economy of Western Mexico that the average outsider could never have guessed. The Valencia family operates a quiet, sophisticated organization later identified by U.S. authorities as Los Queenies. While other criminal groups in Mexico fight public wars, Los Queenies specializes in something else: money. The Valencia brothers, particularly Abigail Gonzalez Valencia, Rosalinda's brother, have built an international financial network that moves drug profits through legitimate businesses, real estate, and shell companies across multiple continents. According to U.S. Treasury Department documents released years later, Los Queenies is at one point considered one of the wealthiest criminal organizations in Latin America. They own restaurants. They own hotels. They move money through Switzerland, through Panama, through Hong Kong. They are, in essence, the private bank of the Mexican drug trade. When Mencho marries Rosalinda, he does not just marry into a family. He marries into an empire. The alliance is strategic. The Valencias bring capital, logistics, and political connections. Mencho brings what they don't have: operational discipline and a willingness to use violence as a tool of business. According to investigations by Incite Crime and the DEA, the two families will function for the next 2 decades as a single integrated unit. Los Queenies handles the money. The Oseguera operation handles the guns. For 10 years, Mencho rises quietly inside the Mencho Cartel. He is not a public figure. He leaves no fingerprints in the press, no recorded interviews, no photographs. The DEA, focused on the bigger names of the era, pays him no special attention. He is building, quietly, an operational network across Western Mexico. He is also building a family. 3 children. A son, Rubén Oseguera Gonzalez, born in 1990. 2 daughters, Jessica Johanna and Laisha. The son, later known as El Menchito, will grow up inside the business his father is constructing, a child raised on cartel operations the way other children are raised on family farms. Then, on July 29, 2010, an event occurs that changes everything. In Zapopan, Jalisco, Mexican military forces engage in a firefight with members of the Sinaloa cartel. Among the dead is Ignacio Nacho Coronel Villarreal, a senior leader of the Sinaloa organization and one of the few cartel figures capable of holding the Western Corridor together. His death creates a vacuum. The Mencho cartel fractures. One faction wants to align with Sinaloa. Another faction, including a group calling itself the Mata Zetas, or Zeta Killers, wants independence. The leader of the breakaway faction is Eric Valencia Salazar, alias L85. His most trusted partner is Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. In 2010, what had been the Mencho Cartel is reborn under a new name: the Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. The name itself is a statement. New generation, implying something the older cartels cannot claim. CJNG is younger, hungrier, unburdened by the political accommodations of its predecessors. The organization announces itself with theatrical executions of Zeta cartel operatives, bodies dumped on highways, videos posted online. The message is simple. There is a new power in Western Mexico, and it will not negotiate. For the first 2 years, L85 is the public face. Mencho is the strategist, the brain working in the shadows. Then, in March 2012, Mexican federal forces capture Eric Valencia in a raid in Zapopan. He is sentenced to prison. He never returns to power. Almost overnight, leadership of CJNG passes to the man who has been waiting in the shadows for 2 decades. The boy from Aguililla, the deported heroin dealer from San Francisco, the former police officer with a 5th grade education. He is 46 years old. He is finally in charge. And the world is about to learn his name. The CJNG that El Mencho inherits in 2012 is a regional operation. By 2018, it is a global enterprise. By 2024, the U.S. State Department identifies it as the dominant cartel in Mexico, surpassing even the Sinaloa cartel with the highest cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine trafficking capacity in the country. The transformation is unprecedented. How does it happen? The answer, according to security analysts who have studied the organization for years, lies in 3 innovations. Mencho introduces innovations that other cartels either refuse to adopt or cannot implement. The first is the franchise model. Traditional Mexican cartels operate on a hierarchical structure. Territory is controlled directly by named lieutenants reporting to a central leadership. Expansion is slow and expensive. Mencho rejects this model entirely. Under his leadership, CJNG develops what U.S. intelligence officials later describe as a franchise system. Smaller local criminal organizations across Mexico and eventually across South America, Europe, and Asia can affiliate with CJNG. They pay tribute, they use the brand, they receive protection and supply chains. In exchange, CJNG gains access to territories it could never have conquered by force alone. By 2020, the franchise has spread to all 32 Mexican states. By 2024, the DEA estimates CJNG has operational presence in all 50 U.S. states. It is the largest geographic footprint of any Mexican cartel in history. Even the Sinaloa cartel, at the height of El Chapo Guzman's power, never operated across as many jurisdictions. El Chapo's empire was built on personal relationships, on individual deals, on direct loyalty to him. When he fell, parts of that empire fell with him. The franchise model, by contrast, is designed to outlive any single leader. The second innovation is logistical. In 2013, CJNG quietly takes control of the port of Manzanillo, on Mexico's Pacific coast. Manzanillo is the largest container port in Mexico and the primary entry point for precursor chemicals used to manufacture methamphetamine and, increasingly, fentanyl. With control of the port, CJNG can import raw materials from China and India, manufacture finished product in clandestine laboratories across western Mexico, and ship it north to American consumers. The synthetic drug trade is the future of organized crime. Mencho sees it before anyone else. The third innovation is the use of extreme, public, performative violence. In June 2011, members of what will become CJNG abandoned 35 bodies on a busy highway in Veracruz. The bodies are left in plain view in broad daylight during rush hour. The message is not coded. This is how CJNG will do business. Over the next decade, The cartel will dump bodies from highway overpasses, hang corpses from bridges, post videos of its enforcers wielding military-grade weapons on social media. In 2019, in the city of Uruapan, 19 mutilated bodies will be discovered. 9 will be hung, semi-naked, from a pedestrian bridge. Beside them, a banner reading, "Lovely people, carry on with your routines." Signed, CJNG. This is not random brutality. It is deliberate, calculated communication, and it works. By 2014, CJNG is openly challenging the Sinaloa cartel for control of national trafficking routes. By 2015, the organization has pushed into Mexico City itself. The Mexican government finds itself facing an enemy that does not fit any previous pattern. This is not a cartel. This is something closer to a paramilitary insurgency. Then comes the 1st of May, 2015. That morning, before dawn, an armed convoy of CJNG operatives moves through the back roads of southwestern Jalisco. The vehicles drive with their headlights off, heading toward the small town of Villa Purificación, where, according to Mexican intelligence, El Mencho himself is hiding. The Mexican federal police have received the same intelligence. At approximately 6:30 in the morning, 3 Mexican military helicopters approach the convoy from the air. Inside are 18 federal agents. Their mission is to capture or eliminate El Mencho. What happens next has no precedent in Mexican history. The CJNG operatives have been waiting. As one of the helicopters flies low over the convoy, cartel gunmen open fire with military-grade weaponry, a Browning M2 heavy machine gun, a Barrett M82 anti-material rifle, and a Soviet-made RPG-7 rocket-propelled grenade launcher. The RPG strikes the helicopter directly. It goes down in flames. 9 federal officers are eliminated. The pilot, Ivan Morales Corrales, survives with third-degree burns, over 70% of his body. He spends months in a medically induced coma. He undergoes 15 reconstructive surgeries. He will later receive Mexico's Police Medal of Merit from then-President Enrique Peña Nieto. It is the first time in the history of the Mexican drug war that a cartel has used anti-aircraft weaponry against the Mexican state. Within hours, the news travels around the world. President Enrique Peña Nieto announces that CJNG will be dismantled. The government inaugurates Operation Jalisco, a coordinated effort by the Army, the Federal Police, the Attorney General's Office, and the National Intelligence Service to capture Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, a man who had been an obscure regional operator just 5 years earlier, is now, officially, the most wanted person in the country. The DEA reward climbs first to $5 million, then to $10 million. Eventually, it will reach $15 million, the largest bounty ever offered by the U.S. government for a Mexican fugitive. El Mencho responds by disappearing. For the next 11 years, no verified photograph of him will surface. No interview. No recorded voice. He moves between safe houses in the mountains of Michoacán and Jalisco. He communicates through written notes, hand-delivered. He never uses phones. He never uses computers. The contrast with other narcos of his generation is striking. El Chapo Guzman agreed to an interview with the actor Sean Penn in 2015, an interview that played a role in his eventual recapture. Other cartel leaders posted photographs of themselves on social media. Some commissioned narco corridos to be written in their honor. El Mencho rejected all of it. He understood, perhaps better than any cartel leader before him, that visibility was the enemy. Every photograph was evidence. Every recorded voice was a potential intercept, Every public appearance was an opportunity for the DEA to confirm his location. His one indulgence, according to local journalists who cover the region for years, is cockfighting. He owns roosters. He breeds them. He bets on them. He attends fights in remote villages where the audience is vetted, the security is tight, and the announcers know not to use his name. In the villages of Western Mexico, he comes to be known by a second nickname, the Lord of the Roosters. For more than a decade, the most powerful security forces in 2 countries hunt this man. They cannot find him. Until, 11 years later, a single mistake will bring him down. By the late 2010s, El Mencho's empire has reached a strange equilibrium. The cartel is generating, by U.S. Treasury Department estimates, billions of dollars annually. Its members number roughly 19,000. Its operations span 5 continents. And around its founder, the walls are slowly closing in. The first crack appears in June 2014. In a coordinated operation, Mexican federal forces arrest Rubén Oseguera González, better known by his cartel alias, El Menchito. At the time of his arrest, he is considered by Mexican intelligence to be the second in command of CJNG. He is 24 years old. What follows is a years-long legal drama. He is released multiple times for lack of evidence and rearrested almost immediately on additional charges. Eventually, in February 2020, he is extradited to the United States. In September 2024, a federal jury in Washington, D.C., convicts him on charges of murder, drug trafficking, and firearms violations. He is sentenced to life in prison, plus 30 years. The trial itself, conducted in a federal courtroom in the U.S. Capitol, is extraordinary. Witnesses testify anonymously, behind partitions, with their voices distorted. Among those witnesses, according to later reporting in the Mexican magazine Milenio, is Iván Morales Corrales, the same federal police pilot who had survived the 2015 helicopter attack. He had recovered from his burns. He had testified about what he had seen. A year after the trial concluded, in May 2025, he and his wife will be eliminated in their car by CJNG operatives who have not forgotten his cooperation. The cartel never forgets. The cartel never forgives. His father has paid millions in legal fees and bribes attempting to free him. None of it has worked. The second crack appears in 2018. Rosalinda González Valencia El Mencho's wife is arrested on charges of money laundering. The woman who brought him into the world of Los Queenies is now a defendant in her own right. In 2020, his daughter Jessica, a U.S. citizen by birth, is arrested in Washington, D.C. while attempting to attend her brother's court hearing. She pleads guilty to involvement with U.S.-sanctioned cartel businesses and is sentenced to 2.5 years in federal prison. His family, one by one, is being dismantled, but El Mencho remains free. In June 2020, he makes one of the boldest moves of his career. The target is a man named Omar Garcia Harfuch at the time, the chief of police of Mexico City, an investigator known for refusing cartel bribes. A man CJNG has tried to intimidate, threaten, and corrupt without success. In broad daylight, on a busy avenue in the upscale Mexico City neighborhood of Lomas de Chapultepec, a unit of CJNG enforcers attempts to eliminate him. The attack is elaborate. Heavily armed gunmen ambush Harfuch's convoy at a major intersection. They have been waiting for hours. They have positioned vehicles in advance. They have .50 caliber machine guns mounted on pickup trucks. They fire hundreds of rounds in the space of less than a minute. The volume of gunfire is so intense that residents of one of the most affluent neighborhoods in Mexico City initially believe they are hearing a military exercise. Bullet holes will later be counted in dozens of nearby buildings. Cars parked on the street are destroyed. 2 of Harfouch's bodyguards are eliminated. A passing civilian is eliminated. Harfouch himself is struck 3 times in the collarbone, in the knee, and grazed across the temple. He survives. The doctors who treat him will later describe his survival as nearly impossible given the volume and proximity of the gunfire. He had taken a clavicle shot that should have hit his carotid artery. The official medical assessment uses the word miraculous, and he remembers. 4 years later, in 2024, when Claudia Sheinbaum becomes president of Mexico, she appoints Omar Garcia Harfuch as her Secretary of Security and Citizen Protection, the senior security official in the country. The man who survived the assassination attempt now has the full resources of the Mexican state at his disposal. He will dedicate the next 18 months to one goal: finding El Mencho. But before they find him, the world will discover something else. On March 5, 2025, a civilian collective called Guerreros Buscadores de Jalisco, a volunteer group of grieving parents searching for missing children, receives an anonymous tip about a suspected mass grave at a property called Rancho Izaguirre in the municipality of Tuchitlan, Jalisco. The property has been raided by Mexican authorities 5 months earlier. The official report described the rescue of 2 kidnapped individuals and the arrest of 10 suspects. It did not describe what the volunteers will find. When members of Guerreros Buscadores enter the property on that March morning, they discover what some media outlets will later call an extermination camp. Scattered across the sugarcane fields are approximately 200 pairs of shoes, hundreds of items of clothing, backpacks, children's belongings, 3 makeshift crematoriums, and, according to forensic investigators, charred human remains. The images that emerge in the days that follow are difficult to look at. The shoes are arranged in rows. The backpacks are sorted by size. This is not the chaos of a crime scene. This is the organized aftermath of an industrial process, a process in which human beings have been systematically processed and erased. For Mexican families with missing relatives, the discovery is both a confirmation and a torment. Their loved ones might have been here, or might not. The remains are too degraded to be quickly identified. The DNA matching process will take months. Some families will never receive an answer. The site, according to investigations by Mexico's Attorney General's office, has been used as a CJNG training and recruitment facility. The U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control will later confirm that the ranch was also used for executions. The pattern of recruitment is systematic. CJNG recruiters post false job advertisements on social media offering security guard positions with weekly salaries between 4,000 and 12,000 pesos. Applicants are summoned to bus stations, transported to the ranch, stripped of their cell phones, and trained for approximately 1 month in weapons handling and physical conditioning. Those who demonstrate aptitude are assigned to CJNG cells across Mexico. Those who refuse or try to escape are beaten, tortured, and eliminated. According to forensic analysis later cited in El País, the crematoriums may have been operating since at least 2019. For 6 years, an industrial-scale facility for the conversion of young Mexican men into cartel soldiers has been operating in plain sight, in a region of Jalisco the federal government supposedly controls. The volunteers who discover it are grieving parents. The discovery shocks Mexico. It also shocks the world. A U.S. Republican congressman compares the site to Nazi death camps. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights demands an international investigation. The man at the top of the organization responsible for the ranch does not comment. He has no need to. By March 2025, El Mencho is reportedly in poor health. According to persistent, though never officially confirmed reports from Mexican investigative outlets, he is suffering from chronic kidney failure. He is moving between safe houses with growing frequency. His inner circle has shrunk to a small group of trusted bodyguards. And in the United States, the pressure is building. In February 2025, the Trump administration State Department officially designates CJNG as a foreign terrorist organization and a specially designated global terrorist entity. The designation, previously reserved for groups like Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah, triggers new financial sanctions, new authorities for U.S. intelligence operations, and a renewed political will to find the man at the top. For the first time in his life, El Mencho is no longer just a drug trafficker. He is a terrorist in the official language of the United States government. Behind the scenes, an elite American interagency task force, what will later be identified as the Joint Interagency Task Force Counter-Cartel, is quietly mapping his network. Mexican intelligence is tracking his communications. Mexican Army Special Forces are training for the operation that everyone knows is coming. They are waiting for one mistake, one small slip of operational security. It will come, as it so often does in these stories, through a woman. For decades, the central rule of El Mencho's survival has been simple. Trust no one outside the smallest possible circle. No phones, no photos, no fixed routines, no civilians. But every man has his exceptions. In the weeks leading up to February 2026, Mexican intelligence, working with American partners, identifies a woman the cartel has never accounted for in its security protocols. According to Mexican Secretary of National Defense General Ricardo Trevilla Trejo, she is described in official briefings as a sentimental partner of El Mencho. Her name has never been released publicly. She has been under surveillance for months. On February 21, 2026, the surveillance team observes her arriving at a remote cabin in the mountain town of Tapalpa in southwestern Jalisco. Hours later, intelligence confirms that El Mencho is at the same location. The woman leaves the property the next morning. He stays. The Mexican military, in coordination with their American counterparts, has been waiting 11 years for this moment. Before dawn on Sunday, February 22nd, a Mexican Army Special Forces unit moves into position. 6 helicopters from an airmobile assault unit. Texan reconnaissance aircraft providing air cover from across the U.S. border. Ground units of elite Army troops trained for precisely this kind of operation. At sunrise, they move in. What follows is a battle that will last most of the morning. The cabin's perimeter is defended by El Mencho's personal bodyguards by all accounts, the most trusted men in the organization, hand-selected over decades. As the Special Forces approach, they open fire with assault rifles, light machine guns, and at least one rocket-propelled grenade. 8 CJNG members are eliminated. Several Mexican soldiers are wounded. One Army helicopter hit by ground fire is forced to make an emergency landing. In the chaos, El Mencho flees into the forest. He is running with 2 of his closest bodyguards. He is wounded. He is 59 years old. He has spent 30 years of his life avoiding exactly this moment. The Special Forces track him for hours. The terrain favors the defenders: thick pine forest, steep elevation, limited visibility. But the soldiers have air support, thermal imaging, and the numerical advantage of a force that has been training for this operation for months. The pursuit is conducted in near silence, except for occasional bursts of distant gunfire as the soldiers clear possible defensive positions. The morning fog of the Jalisco mountains makes aerial observation difficult. Tracking dogs are used. So are heat-sensing optics. For the men of CJNG running through that forest, wounded, exhausted, outgunned, the moment must feel like the inversion of everything they have spent their lives doing. For decades, they have been the hunters. The state has been the prey. The reversal in those final hours is complete. When they finally catch up, El Mencho and his bodyguards are exhausted and outnumbered. The final firefight is brief. 2 more rounds find their target. He is placed on a stretcher and loaded onto a military helicopter for medical evacuation to Mexico City. He dies on the helicopter en route to the capital. It is the highest profile loss for a Mexican criminal organization since the original capture of El Chapo Guzman a decade earlier. The response from CJNG is immediate, coordinated, and devastating. Within hours of the news, the cartel launches what Mexican authorities will later describe as the largest coordinated reprisal in the modern history of the Mexican drug war. Across Jalisco and 21 other Mexican states, CJNG operatives set fire to convenience stores and gas stations. They drag trucks onto major highways and ignite them, creating burning barricades known as narco bloqueos. They attacked National Guard patrols in 6 separate incidents. By Monday evening, Mexico's National Security Agency reports at least 252 blockades across the country. 74 people are eliminated. 25 members of the Mexican National Guard are among the dead. The international tourism industry collapses overnight. U.S. and Canadian airlines cancel flights to Puerto Vallarta and Guadalajara. The U.S. State Department issues a shelter-in-place advisory. More than 1,000 tourists are stranded at the Guadalajara Zoo, forced to sleep in buses overnight. Mexico, in a single weekend, looks less like a functioning state and more like a country at war. The succession question becomes immediate and urgent. 4 men are identified as potential successors. Audias Flores Silva, alias El Jardinero, who controls operations in Nayarit and Zacatecas. Gonzalo Mendoza Gaitan, alias El Sapo, who dominates the Puerto Vallarta corridor and supervises the Izaguirre ranch. Juan Carlos Valencia Gonzalez, alias El Pelon, El Mencho's stepson who commands the cartel's armed wing. And Ricardo Ruiz Velasco, alias LRR, who leads the elite paramilitary unit. None of them are related to El Mencho by blood. This is, in retrospect, one of the structural weaknesses of his empire. Unlike the Sinaloa cartel, CJNG has no heir apparent inside the family. El Menchito is serving life in a U.S. federal prison. Jessica is a convicted felon. Rosalinda is awaiting trial in Mexico. The lieutenants who remain are powerful, capable, and critically geographically separated. Each controls his own trafficking corridor. Each commands loyal armed forces. None needs the others to survive. The early consensus among analysts is that CJNG will not formally collapse. It will instead fragment slowly a process that could take years and will likely produce violence at every step. The trafficking will continue regardless. Because here is the truth that the news cycle, in the weeks after Tapalpa, does not adequately convey. El Mencho did not die as a regional Mexican criminal. He died as one of the principal architects of the deadliest drug crisis in American history. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, more than 100,000 Americans die every year from drug overdoses. The vast majority of those deaths are caused by synthetic opioids, primarily fentanyl. The vast majority of that fentanyl is manufactured in clandestine laboratories in western Mexico. And the dominant supplier of that fentanyl, according to repeated DEA assessments, was the Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación. For more than a decade, El Mencho's organization has been the engine of an epidemic that has killed more Americans than the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and every American military conflict since combined. That engine does not stop with his death. The chemical precursors continue to flow through the port of Manzanillo. The laboratories continue to operate in the hills of Jalisco and Michoacán. The product continues to move north. The men who succeed El Mencho will not be sentimental about his death. They will be focused on the same business he was focused on. The market is too lucrative. The demand is too constant. There will be new leaders. There will be new wars. There will be new names on the DEA's most wanted list, and new bounties offered, and new operations conducted in the pre-dawn hours by men in helicopters with night vision goggles. The story does not end. It only changes hands. And so, we are left with a question. Not a question about El Mencho about him. The record is now complete. He was born in poverty in 1966. He died of his wounds in a military helicopter in 2026. In between, he built one of the largest criminal enterprises in modern history. The question is about us, about the demand that made him possible, about the chemical supply chains we have failed to disrupt, about the small towns in the American Midwest where fentanyl deaths now outnumber births, about the next El Mencho, who is somewhere right now in a poor village in Michoacán, or Sinaloa, or Tamaulipas, guarding a marijuana plot at the age of 14. It is tempting, when a story like this ends, to imagine that some larger lesson has been learned, that the death of El Mencho will somehow chasten the next generation of cartel operators, that the men who succeed him will look at his fate and choose a different path. History suggests otherwise. Pablo Escobar was eliminated in 1993. The cocaine trade did not stop. It changed hands. El Mencho himself was a product of this pattern. He had watched El Chapo Guzman fall in 2014, again in 2016, and finally in 2017. He had studied those captures. He had adjusted his own operational security. He had survived more than a decade longer than the man whose territory he had largely inherited. The men who succeed him will do the same. The avocado fields are still there. The roads to the U.S. border are still open. The boy from Aguililla is gone. But the road that led him out of those avocado fields, and the road that led, 40 years later, to a wooden cabin in Tapalpa, those roads remain. Someone will walk them. If this story showed you the real architecture behind the headlines, if you want to understand how these organizations rise, how they fall, and what they leave behind, then Sleep Crime is your channel. Every week, we tell the stories the world needs to understand. Not to glorify crime, not to romanticize the men who built these empires, but to make sense of what they did, why they did it, and what comes next. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Join a community looking for the truth in the shadows. We'll see you in the next crime.